Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan and I'm standing in this endless white void behind me because we've just moved offices. I'm sure Julia will figure out how to put some kind of logo here. She's our editor. She's really great at her job. But anyway, let's get on to the video. When we talk about human evolution, we often look at just the biological changes that have helped us to adapt to our environment. But these changes oftentimes take place over the course of hundreds of thousands of years, and the changes are pretty minute usually, kind of like how my pinky now can bend towards the side, like that. But what is more noticeable, and perhaps an even more important part of human evolution, is the development of human cultures and society. Over the course of multiple generations, groups of people adopt new laws, customs, and learned behavior, which are all basically designed to ensure the survival of that way of living. This could be as simple as rules forbidding relations between family members to decrease genetic illnesses and dark side offsprings, or something more complex, like a global financial system designed to regulate the trades of goods and services. Our current day society is creating new rules and learned behaviors to combat all of the crazy inventions that we have created in the last few decades, like social media, butt cheek implants, and other weird things. It's something that our biological evolution could never keep up with. Of course, not every society is the same. Some are led to greatness and prosperity by their culture, while others are doomed to extinction because of the poor choices they made when creating their society. The Mandalorians, by the time of the Mandalorian TV show, are a shadow of their once powerful past. The Mandalorians' fall from grace and gradual decline in the last few millennia are a direct result of their poor choices made as a society and regressive traditions. Now, today I want to look at some of the more messed up things that the Mandalorians have done as a people, and maybe connect that to why their culture and society is slowly fading away. The Basilisk War Droid is one of the coolest pieces of gear the Mandalorians have, and knowing how big of a Star Wars nerd Dave Filoni is, hopefully we'll be able to see it very soon in the next season of The Mandalorian. The Basilisk War Droid was a semi-sentient combat droid, which essentially means it's like a mechanical horse that Mandalorians would ride into battle. A mechanical horse that was heavily armored, could fly in space and in atmosphere, and was armed to the teeth with a wide range of laser cannons, shockwave generators, and missile launchers. The Mandalorian Crusaders would oftentimes drop from orbit in these terrifying mechanical beasts and cause entire enemy formations to rout. The rest of the galaxy was so terrified by these Basilisk War Droids that when Revan defeated the Mandalorians, he demanded that they destroy all of their mounts. Now, what's really messed up about the Basilisk War Droid is that it originally was designed and created by the Basiliskans, an intelligent lizard species that happened to live on a planet that was in the path of the Mandalorians' Holy Crusade. Around 1417 BBY, the Mandalorian Crusade would reach Basilisk, and they would fight a terrifying conflict with the natives on the planet. The Basilians eventually were overrun, and before they were defeated, they decided to poison their own planet and hopefully stop the Mandalorian invasion once and for all. Unfortunately, their plan didn't work and their planet became barren, and the Basiliskans became slaves for the Mandalorians. Now, since these lizards had very thick hide and sharp claws, they're actually pretty competent in conflict, and so the Mandalorians basically turned them into a race of slave warriors. But over the years, the Basilians began to degenerate because of forced breeding and lost their sentience and became nothing more than just beasts. Now the only thing left of them are the War Droids, and in my opinion, this is a fate worse than extinction or death because they've essentially degenerated and devolved into a lower species. What people forget about the Mandalorian Wars is that the Republic only started caring about the Mandalorian invasion when Mandalore the Ultimate's horde finally reached the populated planet of Taris. Prior to this, for several years, the Mandalorian Crusade had already devastated several worlds and killed off many species. In 3973 BBY, the Mandalorian Crusade would attack Cathar, the home world to the Cathar species, which were kind of like these cat people. The Cathar were relatively primitive people who lived in giant trees dotting vast plains and savannas. They had almost no way to fight back against the modern Mandalorian military force and therefore were immediately defeated. Cassius Fett, leader of the Mandalorian invasion force, saw weakness in the Cathar species, so instead of enslaving them, he decides to exterminate them all. In one of the documented mass executions, a large group of Cathar civilians were herded directly into the sea and drowned. A Mandalorian woman actually protested against Cassis Fett during this occurrence, but ended up dying for her objection. An interesting side note is that her mask would one day be found by Revan, and it would become a very famous part of his image. A less interesting note about this conflict was that 90% of the population of Qatar died during this massacre, and the Republic, of course, tried to suppress any news about this event so that unrest and fear wouldn't increase in the rest of the Republic. After the Padawan massacre forced the Jedi to abandon their tower on Terrace because it smelled like broken dreams, betrayal, and the blood of innocents, the Mandalorians moved in and began a new stage of the war known as the onslaught. The Republic Navy was now mobilizing in larger numbers because finally a world they cared about was under attack. The Jedi Revan had also started his own faction of Jedi who wanted to fight in the war and help out the Republic. Rear Admiral Saul Karath was placed in command of Battle Group Sirocco, which was located in the Sirocco system where the Mandalorian Crusaders were expected to go next. Karath had most of his fleet deployed in orbit in a defensive screen, and most of his infantry were on the ground building fortifications near the major cities. Mandalore the Ultimate viewed Karath's strategy as defense without honor. Don't really know what that means, but I assume the Republic thought the Mandalorians would go after their ships instead of the civilians in their cities. But boy, were they wrong. Immediately upon entering the Sirocco system, the Mandalorian fleet launched a volley of nuclear warheads. The Republic Navy was shocked to see all of these projectiles head towards them, miss their blockade, and then strike several cities down below on the planet's surface, destroying all 27 population centers on the planet. Several Republic ships that were closer to the surface of the planet were lost, along with any military bases that the Republic had established near one of these population centers. The devastation was so massive, it was said that many Jedi could feel the loss of this planet through the Force. Just like what happened during the inside job known as the destruction of Alderaan. So, many of you are probably aware that the Mandalorian known as Jango Fett provided his genetic material for the entire clone army. This alone is a pretty controversial act. Jango, in this case, is essentially allowing the Kaminoan scientists to use his genetic information as a template for an entire army of sentient slave soldiers. Sentient slave soldiers who have advanced aging and will most likely die a horrible and not very honorable death. I'm pretty sure most of these things are frowned upon by the Mandalorian Code and any basic moral guideline that the galaxy uses. And to make matters even worse, Jango Fett didn't do this alone. He actually hired an entire Kol Dar, or 100 or so mercenaries that helped him train the clone commandos. While most of these Mandalorian trainers treated their new clone cadets as if they were their own children and provided the best training they could give them, they were still a part of a system that abused children and forced them into combat at the ripe age of just 9. Which, now that I actually think about it, is pretty normal for a Mandalorian. Now, some Mandalorian trainers would devote the rest of their lives to freeing clone commandos they had trained. But the Kol Dar made the clone commandos an extremely effective fighting force, which ultimately gave the Republic more reasons to create even more clone troopers. Now, the Mandalorians for most of their history had a code against thievery and general nonsense and chaos. They were supposed to be a trusted and honorable group of mercenaries that could be depended on, and for a while it was a pretty good business model for them to follow. But after the new Mandalorians took over Mandalore, there was a drastic change in the Mandalorian culture. For the first time, you had a very non-traditional government that was actually pacifist. A group of Mandalorians known as the Deathwatch sought to bring back the ways of the old. You know, when the strong would rule the weak and everyone walked around in full body armor, even the ladies. Now, I have no problem with tradition, but how the Deathwatch wanted to gain control was pretty messed up. The first thing they attempted to do was carry out terrorist attacks, including a bombing that almost killed the Duchess Satine Kryze. When that failed, then the Deathwatch were driven from their home on Concordia. Deathwatch leader Pre Vizsla approaches the ex-Sith Lord Maul, and together they create a huge criminal organization called the Shadow Collective. It was made up of some of the largest outfits in the galaxy, including the narcotic-pushing Pike Syndicate, the military-oriented Black Suns. Even the Hutts decided to bend knee and throw in with this new group. Deathwatch would use these various criminal organizations to cause panic and chaos on Mandalore, which weakened the rule and image of the new Mandalorians and led to the collapse of their planetary government. Deathwatch came in at the last second like saviors and rounded up all the criminal scum and took over control of the planet with popular support. So there you have it, guys. 5 extremely messed up things the Mandalorians did as a people. As you can tell, they have some very self-destructive tendencies that are really limiting their potential. as people. But let me know in the comment section below if I've missed any other atrocities they've committed. I'm pretty sure I have. I mean, they killed a lot of people. Anyway, guys, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.